Good morning, Maragon. I hope that you guys are doing very well, and it's my pleasure and privilege just to do leadership with you guys today. Unfortunately, we are online. As you know, we're not in person like we used to be, but for now we're going to do it like this. And so I just want to say, let's just open up our hearts and our minds and just be open to learn and just to hear what God wants to stir in our hearts regarding leadership. So I hope that you guys are keeping warm and keeping well in this time as we go into the third term. And today I want to speak about problem solving. And obviously, us being in the current COVID-19 pandemic, as leaders, we have to think how we can engage different problems and how should we approach these problems that are now, that we are facing and stuff. So, firstly, as a leader, I just started thinking, as a leader, we are all going to be remembered one day by other people. And so you are going to remember me in a certain way when I leave Maragon or when you guys matriculate or whatever, and I got to think, okay, how do I want to be remembered? Your teachers are going to remember you in a certain way. You are going to remember your teachers in a certain way. And so all of us have to, have this mindset of how do we want to be remembered by people? And it's not to come from a place of, okay, I need to please people and stuff like that. But regarding problem solving, you're going to be remembered as someone that ran towards problems and was available to try and solve them, or were you just contributing to the problem? And so that is just something to get remembered. And God is not surprised by our problems. Just to start off with that, is that quite often we have these problems and we think, okay, now I've got to face this thing alone and I've got no idea how I'm going to get through this. But God is with you in that problem that you are busy facing. The thing is, sometimes we think we're so alone and we've got nobody in our corner and how am I going to get through this? But that's not the case. And God is definitely not surprised by our situation or by our problem that we're currently facing. And God has created you with a unique gifting for your particular situation, for the current problems that you are facing. So I want to just encourage you. So the first thing that we do when we face a problem, a good thing to do, is to take initiative. Sometimes we think that we have to have expertise in that field or in that problem or in that area in order for us to try and engage the problem. And because we don't have the knowledge or the experience or whatever in that particular area where that problem is, if that makes sense, we think, okay, I can't engage, I should rather leave it and step back and wait for somebody else to come. But that's not the case. There's something interesting that happens when we say, I'm available, I'm going to try and engage this problem. And even if I fail, I still learn something from engaging with this issue. So what I want to challenge you on is, are you focused on your ability or are you focused on your availability? Because there's something amazing that God does in our hearts when we say, Lord, I know I'm not able, I can't do this, but I'm available. And there's something amazing that God does through you in that situation when you just stick up your hand and say, Lord, I'm going to go and I'm going to run towards this, but I'm trusting you and that you will help me and give me the wisdom to engage with this problem. So again, focus on your availability or your ability. We all know the famous Jack Sparrow, and how I remember reading this quote once where he said, your problem is not the problem. The problem is your attitude about the problem. And sometimes we think, okay, like I said earlier, I can't take on this challenge, and we have such a negative mindset when engaging a problem, and how people say, we shouldn't look at problems as problems, but rather as opportunities. And it reminds me of a joke where this guy said, boss, I've got a problem. And his boss said to him, there are no such things as problems, only opportunities. And then the guy said, okay, well, in this case, I've got a drinking opportunity. So it's not quite the same, but you know what I mean. So, yeah, anyway. So what is a problem, right? So you can't defeat something that you can't define, right? So you need to define what it is. And like I said, we should look at it as leaders, we should look at it as an opportunity, right? So, and I remember also hearing this quote once where it said, running away from a problem only increases the distance from the solution. I'm going to say that again. Running away from a problem only increases the distance from the solution. And I think in my years of, or few years of being in ministry and stuff and engaging with all the leaders and stuff, I've asked them, what is their biggest frustration with younger leaders? And how a lot of them say, they normally come with problems and they don't come with many solutions. And it's quite evident, I guess, in our society, how many issues and stuff we have. And it's because people don't want to take up that leadership. They don't want to solve problems. They rather, wait till somebody else comes in or till somebody else takes initiative or whatever. But that's not the case. And many of us do not want to just take initiative, and we'd rather repeat the problem instead of coming with solutions and how we can engage stuff. So that's something just to think about is, how are you building that reputation for yourself? Are you known as a leader who just, okay, I just, stick to the norm and I just do what I'm supposed to do? Or do you take initiative and step out of the boat and really, try to engage with those problems? And even if you don't succeed in solving the problem, you've still got that experience and you've still learned. How a lot of people, like successful people, will say, I never win or lose. I either win or I learn. And that is that optimistic thinking that a leader should have, is that even if you do fail, it doesn't, and we all fail, it doesn't make you a failure. There's a big difference between you failed versus being a failure. And quite often we take that on as an identity and say, okay, now I am a failure now. But that's not true. You have failed, but you have also learned from that. Romans 12 verse 2, it speaks about being transformed by the renewing of your mind. And you see that's a type of thinking that you need to think out of the box as a leader. That, you don't think, okay, I need to just repeat the problems and, I don't know what to do, but really try and think out of the box, renew your mind. That's what it speaks about, renewing your mind daily, spending time with God. And, God always sheds new perspective on situations because He sees the bigger picture. And quite often we get so distracted and we get so discouraged by, what's currently in front of us. In Proverbs 23, verse 7, I think it is, how it says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. We need to be careful about how we think, because your mind is a very powerful thing. And, I'm sure you've watched many of those motivational talks and stuff, and how many of those people say, you need to have the right mindset. You need to have a strong mindset. And like I said, we're focusing on our availability or ability. There's a story in the Bible. It's the story of Nehemiah. And this is a guy that you would, I guess, classify as like a civil engineer in today's times. How, he engaged with the king Artaxerxes, right? And he heard about how, the walls were broken down and, of his forefathers and stuff, and how, he was so heartbroken about it, and how he went to Artaxerxes and he spoke to him about the problem. But before he went to the problem, he spoke to God and stuff. And there are three principles in the story of Nehemiah that I want to share with you about engaging problems. So the first principle is pray before engaging the problem. In 1 Peter 5 verse 7, it says, cast all of your anxiety onto Him because He cares for you. Nehemiah prayed before he saw the king. Before he went to go see King Artaxerxes, he went and he prayed about the problem, and so you acknowledge the problem, and it's not about ignoring it, but acknowledging that there is a problem, right? So then from there, he came with a solution. So Nehemiah asked for help from the king, right? So he went to King Artaxerxes and said that this is the issue that's currently going on, and I'm heartbroken about it, but here's my solution, send me with a bunch of stuff and let me go and rebuild these walls. So he didn't repeat the problem, he came with a solution. And then the third principle that I get out of that story, or the third thing that we can see there, is how God provides a way. How the king, or God, had sent Nehemiah with resources and protection through the king, right? So God used the king to, obviously, who had a lot of wealth and resources and stuff, to give to Nehemiah, to equip him for his journey, and to set him up to engage that problem, right? Now, when we engage with a problem, there are 5 different dynamics of a problem. So the first thing is emotion, right? There's a lot of emotion involved, especially when you're engaging with other people, and you've got conflict and stuff like that. So there's a lot of emotion involved, right? The second dynamic of a problem is there's time constraints. Sometimes you have to solve a problem within a certain time period. The third dynamic is that there could be opposition. Sometimes there's resistance, people not coming to the party, or other people are working against you and not with you, so there's that frustration as well. Another dynamic of a problem is that there can be miscommunication or misunderstanding. This happens a lot when we engage with people, is that I can say one thing and you can hear another. And it's the same when working in a team, is that how we can often get frustrated with other people because they're saying things but then doing something else. And we think they have this malicious intent to, destroy the team or to disrupt what's going on. But meanwhile, that's not the case, even though sometimes it does feel like that. And then obviously the fifth dynamic is worldviews and beliefs and values and stuff. We don't all have the same worldview or the same value and all the same belief. And that can sometimes also influence a problem, especially when, like I said, when we engage with people. So here are some things that I thought, that what can you ask yourself when facing a problem, right? So firstly, what are the facts, right? So this is acknowledging what is the truth about the situation. For example, you're trying to get out of your house or a room and there's a fridge in the doorway, right? So the fact is, okay, even though this upsets me, there's a fridge in the way. Okay, now I need to move this fridge, right? And there's no other way out. That's a fact, for example. A second thing that I thought, what can you ask yourself when facing a problem? How do I feel about this? So acknowledge your emotion, but don't always act out of it. So ask yourself, okay, I feel angry, I feel upset, I feel sad, whatever. And then wonder, okay, why do I feel that way? And then you go from there. Awesome. So now the third thing that we can ask ourselves when facing a problem is, what should I be wary of? Right? So what are the dangers that I'm busy facing when I'm engaging with this problem? Okay. So what should you be mindful of when trying to solve this problem? Right, the fourth thing that you can ask yourself is, what will I gain from this? Sometimes we try and run after problems that aren't necessarily our problems, or that should actually be, if it was delegated to you by a leader, then maybe it can go to somebody else, not because of being lazy, but maybe they can solve better than what you can. And it's not to, like I said, run away from being fearful of it, but sometimes we just run after problems that aren't necessarily our problems, that we just think are our problems. The fifth thing that we can ask ourselves is that, how can I solve this problem? So you just start brainstorming ideas, even if it's unrealistic. So, saying, okay, I'm going to try and push this fridge out of the room, or, someone has to come and help me. But you just brainstorm ideas, and quite often when you try and think creatively and think out of the box, and, even if you come up with unrealistic ideas, that is when, you get your mind, you get the, almost like the clogs working in your brain, and eventually you come up with a solution, and you have fun doing it, even if those answers are completely unrealistic. And the final thing that you can ask yourself when facing a problem is, where do we want to go and why? So reminding yourself of the vision, of the goal, can often help you engage the problem. And it reminds you why you're engaging this problem, that you're not just doing it just because, but because you're moving towards a goal. And sometimes that vision is enough motivation to help us to just keep moving forward, to keep pushing through no matter what we are facing. Right, so solving the problem. Okay, so there are three things that you can use to solve the problem. So divide and conquer. This helps when you're in a team, and then sometimes your teammates, or whoever if you are not engaging a problem alone, then you can divide and conquer, and you can solve or tackle different aspects of this problem that you guys are facing, right? Then the second thing is testing the theory. So this is now, after you've brainstormed ideas and stuff, you go from there and you decide, okay, I'm gonna tackle this problem in this way, and you test it. And even if it doesn't work, you go back to the drawing board and you try again. And that's the third thing, which is trial and error. You keep trying and you keep trying and you keep trying. Just like Thomas Edison, how he said he failed 1,000 times before he got the light bulb right. And I remember reading how he said that when he finally discovered how to make the light bulb, all those other 1,000 tries were just attempts at not, or he discovered ways to not invent the light bulb. And that's that optimistic thinking that a leader should have, is that even though you fail 1,000 times, you just keep pushing because you think, okay, maybe it's 1,001st try that I'll be able to get this thing right. Awesome. So yeah, something else that helps me when engaging a problem is just remembering who or what is in my corner, right? So the first thing that is just the word of God that He's given me in a specific season, or in the beginning of the year, or in the beginning of a season, right? And this really encourages me, just being able to run to God, or just being able to read the Word or share with God whatever the thing that I'm dealing with, right? Like I said in the beginning, how 1 Peter 5:7 says, cast all of your anxiety onto Him because He cares for you. Knowing that God is with me in the situation, that He cares for me, and that I can cast my anxiety onto Him, and the problem that I'm facing, I can share my stress with Him. And just remembering how big God is, and that how this problem is so small in compared to how big God is, and focusing on Him often helps me get through stuff. The second thing that helps me, or that's in my corner, is mentors. How God has sent some amazing leaders in my life. He's sent them on my path, and whom I've learned from, and often I can go to them and not just learn from their failures, but also from their successes, and how going to them and sharing a problem with them, how often they give me awesome advice. And for you, maybe that's like a teacher or a family member or someone in your church or whatever. There are these amazing mentors or leaders in your life that you can run to as well when engaging with a problem. And the third thing is a team. God has set you up in a team, either if you at school, it's your friends, or when you're at work, it'll be your colleagues and stuff, and throughout your whole life, it'll be your family. That is your team that is with you all the way. And then something else, the last thing that for me that comes to mind of what's in your corner is yourself. You are in your corner, and don't underestimate how God can use you and your passion to solve that issue which you think that might be impossible. For example, we all know about Apostle Paul, right? And how he used to be called Saul. And before he got converted, or before Jesus, revealed himself to Paul, Paul had this passion. He was killing Christians, right? And he was like an anti-Christian missionary. He was on his way to go kill Christians, and how he was on that road to Damascus, and where Jesus met him, and how God used him because Paul had this passion just to, he had this fire and this drive inside of him. And despite the fact that he was using it for bad things, God still turned it around and used that gifting, that passion, that drive, that fire inside of him to spread the gospel to all the places where he went. And so don't underestimate the experience that you have, and even if it's been used for bad things, or you've failed or whatever, that can still be used as experience, and it's in your corner for you to use when you engage with problems. I want to end off with two scriptures for you. It says in 2 Peter 1 verse 3, it says, His divine power has given us everything we need for a godly life through our knowledge of Him who called us by His own glory and goodness. And I just want to encourage you, and just for you to remember, God has called you, and you are not in your situation by accident, but God wants to use your situation to do something in you, and also He wants to use you in that situation to do something really amazing. And in Romans 8 verse 28, it just says, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. And I think just remembering that is that in the end, everything will work out, because God makes everything work out for the good of those who love Him. And I think just holding on to that, that vision, that end goal is that, God is going to make all things work out. Even though I experience my reality through the keyhole of my experience or perception, it might not be very nice in this moment, but God is working for your good. And even though we have these problems, we can still engage them. And I know that amazing things are going to come out of that. So I just want to encourage you with that, and may you engage your problems with optimism and excitement, and see it as an opportunity for God to use you and to do amazing work in you.